You ever see someone tear a passport in half like it's a damn napkin and do it with a smile? No warning, no hesitation, just rip, then toss it like trash in front of a packed first-class cabin. Yeah, that happened. Right at Gate 9B at LaGuardia, flight still boarding, half the plane staring, one phone already recording. And the girl? She didn't scream, didn't flinch. She just looked down at the two halves of her U.S. passport on the floor like someone had just ripped her identity in two. Because they did. Her name was Amira Johnson. Hoodie pulled tight, sneakers laced, backpack slung over one shoulder. 20 years old. And to the flight attendant, Miss Perfect posture with the fake French manicure, she looked like someone who didn't belong. Not in that seat, not in that class, not in that skin. Seat 2A? The flight attendant asked, holding Amira's boarding pass like it smelled funny. Amira nodded, calm as stone. Yes. Then came the look. You know, the one up, down, sideways. Her fingers pinched the edge of Amira's passport like it might stain her. This doesn't even belong to you, she snapped, and before anyone could blink, rip. One clean tear down the middle, like it meant nothing. The whole cabin froze. A woman in row 3 gasped. A man near the window cursed under his breath. Someone started filming. But Amira? She just knelt down, picked up the torn pieces, and stood straight like they hadn't just torn her. And that's when the flight attendant, Cynthia Morales, senior crew lead, 12 years in the air, waved over security and said, "Possible forgery, fake documents, first-class scam." Security came in quick. The officer looked between Cynthia and Amira, clearly unsure. "Ma'am, I'll need to ask you a few questions." Amira looked him dead in the eye, calm, controlled. "You just witnessed a federal document being destroyed." He blinked. "Are you saying this is real?" "I'm not saying, officer," she said, voice low but razor sharp. "I'm confirming. And that woman just committed a federal offense under Title 18, Section 1543, willful mutilation of a U.S. passport." Now he was really sweating. But the flight attendant, still smug, still proud. "I've seen scams before," she muttered. "People pretending, playing games." What she didn't know was that she'd just triggered the most powerful tool the FAA had ever embedded in civilian oversight. Amira tapped her smartwatch. One beep, one tap. That was all it took. Clause 13. Activated. Now, let me back up a second. Amira wasn't just some college kid flying solo in a hoodie. She was an undercover inspector for the Federal Aviation Authority's Covert Ethics Division, youngest ever, recruited at 19. And today was her final field test. She didn't dress up because she wasn't there to be respected. She was there to expose what happened when the uniforms weren't looking, when the biases kicked in, when a hoodie meant suspicion and a blackface meant not supposed to be here. And Cynthia Morales just gave her everything she needed. Within 7 minutes, FAA agents hit the gate. Suits, badges, silence. "Agent Johnson," one of them asked. Amira nodded, holding up the torn passport halves. "Confirmed violation. Document destroyed in public view." "Thank you, Agent," the lead said, sliding the evidence into a secure envelope. Then he turned to Cynthia, still trying to talk over him. "She was faking it. I was just protecting the flight." "You destroyed U.S. government property," the agent interrupted, his voice ice cold. "You violated FAA protocols 3A, 4C, and 7D. Passengers were still filming. The woman in seat 3C started crying. "I can't believe this just happened," she whispered. Cynthia's smirk vanished. She was lying. "No," Amira said, steady now. "You just couldn't see past my hoodie." And that's when the dominoes fell. The flight was grounded. TSA locked the terminal. FAA Ethics Command froze all outbound activity from the airline, North Star Air, pending full review. Within 2 hours, news broke. FAA inspector racially profiled triggers emergency clause 13 audit. The airline's stock dropped 14% before markets closed, and all because one woman thought power came with a polyester blazer and a name tag. But here's the real kicker. This wasn't Amira's first flight. Her mother, Amira Johnson, had once been the lead architect for the FAA's ethics oversight framework. 5 years ago, Helena boarded a domestic flight with a folder full of damning internal reports she never got to file. The plane disappeared over Hudson airspace. 83 passengers, 7 crew, no survivors. Official cause? Mechanical failure. Amira never bought it. She was 15 when her mother vanished. And by 17, she was tearing through her mom's old files, trying to make sense of it all, trying to finish what she started. By 19, she was deep inside the FAA's experimental Gen Z ethics initiative, a program so secret it didn't even have a public-facing acronym, just one purpose: to test the limits of moral collapse inside American aviation. That day, Amira didn't just expose a racist crew member, she tore open a hole in the industry. And the consequences? Massive. Over the next 48 hours, Clause 13 triggered international ethics audits across 3 continents. Canada, Japan, and Germany suspended code-share privileges with North Star Air. Their entire executive board was pulled into emergency hearings. Back in D.C., Amira sat before a panel of global aviation authorities. No cameras, no fanfare. Just cold lights, cold stares, and one woman with a laminated copy of her mother's logic map in her pocket. "What would you say to those who believe you acted out of personal bias?" one commissioner asked. Amira didn't blink. "I'd say the system was biased before I touched it. I just made the mirror bigger." That quote went viral. Urban Dictionary added, "To Johnson a situation before noon," to expose a hidden injustice using unimpeachable logic and calm defiance. But the story didn't end there. Weeks later, the Passenger Equity Enforcement Act, nicknamed the Johnson Protocol, passed through Congress in record time. Every airline operating in U.S. airspace was now required to submit to random ethics screenings. Clause 13 became law, not policy. Law. And Cynthia Morales? Fired, charged, barred from holding any public transportation position for life. But here's the part that got me. 3 months after it all went down, Amira walked into a small training room in Baltimore. The walls were plain, the building forgotten. But inside, the first class of the Amira Johnson Institute for Aviation Ethics sat waiting. And in the front row, quiet, no name tag, sat Vivian Brooks, former flight crew. The one who once rolled her eyes at Amira on a different flight. The one who looked the other way. Now, she was learning how to never do that again. "I didn't know who you were that day," Vivian said, voice cracking. Amira sat next to her. "That's the point, Viv. You shouldn't have had to." And for the first time, Vivian nodded. No excuses, no tears, just a quiet yes. A year later, Amira stood at a quiet graveyard on the edge of Maryland. She knelt down, placed a laminated passport over her mother's headstone, the original one, torn edges still visible beneath the plastic. "I didn't fix everything, Mom," she whispered, "but I made sure no girl ever has to hold her ID like it's a bomb." Then she stood, straightened her hoodie, and walked away. And somewhere at 38,000 feet, a flight attendant helped a young black girl find her seat without suspicion. No side eyes, no fake smiles, just respect. Because the system had seen itself, and it couldn't unsee her. Now let me ask you something. If one torn passport can expose an entire system, what else have we let go unseen? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who was right? Who was wrong? And what does justice even look like at 35,000 feet? Because maybe next time the person in the hoodie isn't just watching, they're rewriting the rules.